Yes, guys, welcome to the Matt Byron Show. Matt Byron here. So happy to have you with us. Today we're talking about real estate with my friend Michael Caggiano, also known as Caggiano. He is the founder of Section8Secrets.com, which is an excellent resource. In fact, last week I recommended my sister, who is currently buying her first Section 8 property. As a little background too, Caggiano has had over 11 properties in his career that he's bought over the past decade or so. He currently owns 8 properties, and he's a self-made man. So if you are looking to be self-made in real estate, you're looking to go from 0 to 10 properties, these interviews with Caggiano are key. And I really hope that you listen to them. I hope you learn from them, and hope they help you out. So without further ado, Caggiano, welcome to the show. Great to see you, bro.
Matthew Byron, thank you for having me back, man. It's a pleasure to be back here. I love the cause. I love what you're doing. You're spreading the word and helping people figure out their financial freedom paths.
Yes, financial freedom, Caggiano, is definitely our theme here. Let's talk about your journey in financial freedom, Caggiano. When I first met you, what was it, 10 or 15 years ago? You were just getting out of college, right? Or actually, it's even longer than that. Gosh, it's been
almost 20 years ago, man. It's crazy. I graduated in 05. So,
well, when I first met you, you were just buying your first property, right?
Well, we met. I believe you were essentially my realtor about 3 months after we met. Yeah. So you helped me out in getting my first property.
Let's talk about your journey in financial freedom here. When you bought that first property, 20 years ago, did you realize that you'd be initiating this journey to personal financial freedom? Tell us what that's like and what that journey's been like for you.
No, I mean, not exactly, but it was a mindset that I did have. So I couldn't see in the future, obviously, and know where I was going to be at this point in time. But I did have the idea and the concepts, enough understanding of the financial fundamentals as well, because we came from the mortgage industry, right? That was where you and I met, slinging up mortgages, no doc, magic marker loans. So understanding that, having the financial fundamentals understanding, and then combine that with just a mindset. I did plan on keeping my properties, though. There was no plan to sell. I just didn't know how quick and when and where I'd get the money. Those are some big variables, though.
Sure. And as you plan for financial freedom, I think a key part of that strategy is selling the properties. And we've seen massive ups and downs, massive volatilities in the real estate industry over the past 10, 15, 20 years here. For you, how do you decide when you've got a property, hey, I'm going to flip this one, or I'm going to keep this one, I'm going to hold this one another decade? How do you ride out these storms when the market crashes? What's part of your analysis there, your thought process?
Yeah, so there's a few measures that you can look at too. So return on equity is one of them. When you get to a certain point in having that property and seeing what the returns are and understanding how much equity do I have in it, and is it time to either cash out, refi, or perhaps even sell it? Those are some considerations. For me, I knew I wanted to hold them all essentially, but the only reason I didn't continue holding 3 of the properties, as you mentioned, I have 8 now. I one point had 11, was because they were single family homes. And I ran into some really tough variables with these single family homes that I just wasn't hitting and running into with the HOAs, with my condos and townhomes.
Okay, so for you, it sounds like the main variable here has been single family versus condos. You realize that in retrospect, the single families, they were kind of consuming too much of your time and money, and the ROI just wasn't there. Am I catching that right?
Yeah, so perhaps the ROI was there based on dollars, but my return on time probably wasn't, though. So the money was decent, was still pretty darn good actually, but my return on time was not good. So I was spending so much time on these random fixes, just like starting with the outside that these single families have that make them tough to scale. I had a driveway and I constantly had issues with the driveway, believe it or not, the rocks and the cracking. So I had to get that stuff fixed. I had sidewalks, I had grass, I had shrubs and trees. I had tree limbs hitting windows. I had siding, roofing, shingles issues, and these are stuff on the outside. I literally had grading issues. I had a crawl space problem. I had my water main break.
Wow.
Like, these are things that I was dealing with, and we're only focused on the outside at this point too. But on the inside too, what I found is my single families were just, they were too palatial. I had a rather large executive rental that was 4,200 square feet. It was a 4-bedroom, and I got pretty good money for it. I got good rent money for it, but there was just a lot of space to worry about. I had like a cathedral ceilings all throughout, really high ceilings, huge hallways, just stuff that could go wrong in those, and that you don't see in a condo or a townhome based on just square footage alone, let alone the amenities as well.
And so, talking about the things that go wrong here, as you look back on all these deals you've done a lot of deals, you've also looked at a lot of properties you didn't buy. What would be like three things that stand out to you where you say, hey guys, you're looking to buy your first property, you're looking to buy your third or fourth property, watch out for the driveway, watch out for the grading. Like what major things are red flags to you now that you've learned from through painful lessons, unfortunately, in your real estate investing journey?
Yeah. Well, it's even a little deeper too. I try to get an understanding of the neighborhoods as well. I want to see what's going on with the local government. I want to see if ordinances are changing as well, if there's rent control. It gets a little deeper now than just the property itself. But assuming those variables are met, there's not rent control issues that I'm going to be concerned about. There's not restrictions on how many rentals you could have in a certain neighborhood. Assuming those things are met and you're okay with that, I do like to look at like a sweet spot usually is a 3-bedroom, call it like 1,100, 1,000 square foot 3-bedroom. Preferably, I'll be honest, guys, 1 bath is ideal. 2 bath is okay. I'm not going to like say no to. And then it's a condo or a townhome. Honestly, I like to leverage the HOAs to make myself that much more market agnostic. I'm able to really and I read through, of course, we read heavily through the bylaws and the covenants, but assuming those all don't have enough restrictions that I'm not going to want to deal with them, if that all meets its the test, then I'm likely moving forward as quickly as I can.
And now, Kajian, you were talking about the having 2 bathrooms versus 1. Do you notice a big difference as far as marketability and attractiveness? Like how fast a unit like that would fill up? Are you waiting 30 or 60 days when you've got 1 bathroom versus 2?
Well, good question. So in my model, though, it's government housing. So it doesn't matter. You really just need one. You need that 1 bathroom. Now, if I was going private market or executive rentals, sure, they would probably cause it to be on the market a little bit longer if I have a 4-bedroom and a 1 bath. But no, not with government housing. You need 1 full bath with a shower, with a sink, and that's essentially it. And it doesn't mean you're a slumlord or you're like trying to just pack a bunch of people in. That's actually contrary to what we want to do. Actually, we don't want to pack a bunch of people in. And there's a method and a science behind how I screen those tenants and make sure of that. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially what we would want to do.
And it sounds like too, Kajian, earlier you're talking about refinancing. To people out there who are new to real estate, they might not understand that term or the significance of it and the tax consequences. Can you give us a little insight into what refinancing means and how you time it and all the mechanics behind that, please?
Yeah. So one of the beautiful things about real estate becomes the leverage that you create and the liquidity that you now have. And what I mean is when you first buy a property, you likely are doing conventional financing. And that's, there's other alternative financing options that we train about and we teach. But in this case, let's call it conventional financing. You put 20% down. So that means at this point, you only have 20% equity from, initially when you first buy it. But when you get to a point where you have, say, 40% equity, perhaps you bought and you got a great deal, right? You got a great deal and you already had 10% equity in it. So when you close on it with 20% down, you actually have 30% equity. So you wait maybe 2 years, you have 40% equity. You do a cash out refi and grab that 20% to buy your next property. And what I'm talking about here is you call your mortgage broker. We talk about partnering up too and creating a really good network of individuals that you could leverage on a regular basis. So get a mortgage broker, get an insurance broker, get a good tax guy, get a property management company if you need one. But anyway, you would then contact your mortgage broker, see what you could do for a cash out refi to get that money to accelerate you to get your next property from doing a cash out refi and still keeping that property cash flow positive. That is one thing that we really try to stay on point there. You don't really want to be bleeding out money, even by $1. So as long as it's cash flow positive by $1 after you cash out refi, go for it. We say go for it. As long as you're going to relinquish those and redeploy those funds effectively, and you're not going to go buy, a depreciating asset. You're not going to go buy your Ferrari F430. Yeah.
And talking about, so in the cash out refi here, it sounds like, you're not concerned about a maximum ratio of equity, on your property. You're not saying, hey, I want to keep 10 or 20 or 30% equity in the property. You're saying, I want that property to be cash flow positive. That seems like that's the key metric for measuring the equity in the property. Is that correct?
Sorta. I don't want to be short-sighted and just say, hey, just focus on the cash flowness. But if it makes life a lot easier, you have a lot less stress if you know at least if you have to hold that property for X period of time, at least you're not bleeding out like even $100 a month. That could feel cumbersome. The psychologicalness of that doesn't feel like you're doing yourself justice, because the unrealized gains are hard to feel. And what I'm talking about, the principal pay down and the appreciation, you don't feel on a monthly basis. You don't feel that at all until you take action, until your next move, until you cash out refi or you sell the property. You're likely not feeling the benefit of that. So you're only feeling the stress of a $10 loss per month on cash flow. So why not eliminate that and just make it at least a $1 positive cash flow property and move full steam ahead? Because of my history and my knowledge in reading, it shows that the cost of rent goes up considerably faster and accelerates much quicker than the total cost of owning a property itself. I mean, historically, on average, I increased by 7.85% over a 17-year span. Annually increased my rents by 7.85%. And my costs annually have increased by 0.9%, not even 1%. So historical data of my own, not just assumptions, shows that I have a net difference of at least 6% per year on what the costs go versus what the rents increase to. So it's a pretty good net gain. So meaning if you're only making $10 profit currently, don't think in a year that 10 could easily become 30. And what did you just do? You actually you tripled your positive cash flow, your take home pay, so to speak, right? Which is a really cool feeling. And then that's when we get really into compound real estate, looking at it even deeper. And that's where it gets really fun too.
And now, Casciano, I know that people like Dave Ramsey advocate paying down one's home mortgage as fast as possible just to avoid paying all that interest, because the mortgage increase, it accrues over time and becomes substantial. If a person buys a $500,000 house, the interest over time plus the mortgage is easily over $1 million in many cases. What is your take on paying down a mortgage early? Do you ever do that? And what would be like the key events that happen that would make you want to pay it down early?
Well, yeah, good question. And I totally know the philosophy that Dave Ramsey speaks of. And I understand it. I can understand why you want to advocate for that as an individual that doesn't want to stay in the game, so to speak. And they want to basically check out, right? They just want to relax and not worry. And that's really what he's selling. He's selling a lifestyle of like no worry, but you're not really upping your lifestyle too much at that point if that's what you're doing. Because where I see what you're missing, where you're becoming short-sighted on with that approach, is you're not leveraging anything. So you have all that liquidity, and that's where I talk about return on equity. There's it's very minimal at that point. You're like, oh my God, I wonder what if he looked at ROE, how annoyed he might be. But then again, maybe not, but because he just wants to live comfortably. And that is one way you can do it. But how I look at it, Byron, is it's a kind of a case by case, I guess. It depends on the scenario of what you're presented with. And in my case, like that first property that you sold me, that property's paid off. I've just left it alone, and that property is paid off. And I have like 3 others that are just about, like, I mean, compared to the value of them, like it is comical. Like I owe like $50K on one and it's valued at like 325. Yeah, I owe like 70 on another one, and that one's valued at like 280.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, but there's no real science necessarily unless you're looking at the financial ramifications of it. Like I said, the ROE, and then you're realizing, hey, it's telling me now I should leverage this equity for my next property.
And now, Casciano, let's talk about your recent deals. It sounds like since our last interview, it sounds like you picked up another unit in Maine. Am I correct about that? Or you're buying one or under contract? Is that right?
This is an interesting one, man. So one of the things I talk about and we advocate for is off-market deals. So I'm not dealing with other retail buyers. So it's not a bidding war. It's not a back and forth thing. So you got to do some massaging on this particular character. I massaged for like 2.5 years. I mean, in the meantime, I bought 2 other properties as well. But I mean, put it in perspective too, Byron. It's like I have a full-time job. I have a family of 5. I'm juggling a lot of stuff. But I'm also managing these properties, and then I'm also massaging my next purchaser, my next acquisition. And it's not hard to do. It's kind of fun. But yeah, I did. We signed the P&S in July with a close date in January, which I look at and I'm like, this is comical, man, because I'm collecting like appreciation because we agreed to a price.
Oh,
and
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, despite the market not being like it was in 2021, which I don't expect it to hopefully never be again. Like we're coming out of pandemic and stuff. That was chaos. It's still going up. Prices are still going up, especially at this price point too. I mean, we're not buying, $500,000 houses. We're buying the ones that are in the $150,000 to $250,000 price range. Those are still going up.
And now, Caggiano, I think you and I talked about this deal here and this strategy. I was a little concerned that maybe the seller of the property, the owner of the property, might change his or her mind a couple months into it. And I mentioned the idea of recording a memorandum of PNS at the Registry of Deeds. Did you go ahead with that strategy or not?
Yeah, we move forward. We have that. We have taken care of that, and
Awesome.
that was a good recommendation indeed.
And,
Yeah.
and let me just dive into a little background for that for the people who don't know back home. What we're saying is that there is a registry of deeds in every county in America, and that's where they record documents. Oftentimes, that's where they record the deed or the mortgage on the property. In this instance here, what we've done is Caggiano has recorded a memorandum of a PNS. That way, the title transfer of the property is encumbered until that date. So the owner of the property can't go out and sell it without first getting Caggiano's written permission. So that's really important for protecting him. Now, Caggiano, let's talk about massaging this deal here too. I've been working on some deals here in Texas, some big deals, and in the dynamic of the seller, when you work directly with the seller, is very challenging because it's not adversarial. I mean, at the end of the day, you want the deal to work together smoothly, but at the same point in time, you don't want to give money away. Can you give us a little insight into that process there, the negotiations, the massaging? What's your role, and like how aggressive or assertive or how friendly are you in those negotiations?
Yeah, good thing to kind of exploit here. And the unique thing that I run into in these cases, Byron, ends up being these aren't super, some of them are. I'm not saying they're not intelligent humans. They're just not super sharp in real estate. So
Sure.
despite their initial thoughts of, hey, I'm not going to do the 6% realtor cost and list it, I know a way around this. That doesn't necessarily translate to them making a bigger profit, despite what they believe on the surface, because I have a better understanding. Being in the game as heavily as I am, even though I don't have 150 properties, I'm looking at real estate every single day. I really am. And I know the values of these properties. In fact, I know that particular property that I'm buying is $16,000 less than the same property that just sold. A friend of mine bought a unit in that complex for $16,000 more.
Awesome.
So, and also I still have another 5 months of appreciation. So it's kind of crazy, but yeah, I'm super friendly though. To answer that, I actually become as friendly as I can. I befriend them. I try to get to know them. I know their significant others. I know if they have kids. And I'm just trying to check in on them. And I'll send them a Merry Christmas. I'll check in and say, hey, hope the summer's going good. And that's actually what sparked the next conversation. I said, hey, so-and-so, hope your summer's going great, man. I know winter's right around the corner. You had a chance yet to talk to your wife a little bit more about, heading down south? Because I got to know that. They like to go down to Florida. They like to go to other places. So you're kind of just getting that data, and I always keep it on my Excel for every property. I'm working on one right now. I'm massaging one in Greensboro, North Carolina right now, and I keep notes on that. I have the property, I have their names, I put if they have children, I try to track that stuff. I mean, it's almost like you're stalking, but you're doing it in a super friendly way.
It sounds kind of like sales. I think in sales, the concept is like a drip campaign where a person might not be ready to sell this month, but hey, maybe next year or 2 years from now, they are ready. And then during that time, like you're saying, building the rapport, building that authentic relationship is important. People like to do business with those who respect them, with people who are likable. And I think that you humanize yourself and you build up a genuine connection when you're doing what you're saying, which is building up that rapport and taking the time and being sensitive to their timeline too. For you, if you're looking for, I think for anyone out there looking for a great deal in real estate, they've got to think of the perspective of the seller, right? If it's you might want to buy the property this week and this month, but the seller might want to wait a year because their kids are going off to college. So thinking about the deal from the seller's perspective is important. Now let's dive into that too, Caggiano, because I think this is really important to understand is that deals are not always just about money, right? Can you talk to us about the other terms of the deal, other terms being like the timing or the inspections? Talk to us about other terms and how it's important in your negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should highlight too, Byron, if in this particular person in Maine that we're talking about, that deal that I was able to get actually came as a referral from another FISBO deal that I massaged.
Really? Awesome.
Did.
Awesome.
Yeah, she lived right across the hallway. So I treated her really well and it went really great. And then this other person got involved and said, "Hey, I met so and so. I heard I got your information from so and so, and I hope it's okay. I'm reaching out." And so anyway, that's how that started. So if you treat them that well, that's really going to bode well for getting, a referral or whatever. But and furthermore, I should say this too, as part of the variables to know, this is what's going to be hard for somebody starting off. You need to know how to work a PNS. So that was something that I put this person in really good comfort, because when I learned that that person wanted to do an off-market deal, didn't want to work with a realtor, I was able to then step in and say, well, you are in great hands. I've done 5 of those. I have the state of Maine realtor person sales agreement. I have a title company. Do you have a title company? And he's like, what? No, I don't know. Title company, closing attorneys that I like to use.
Yeah.
And he was just like, whoa, this guy's got this stuff sorted out. So try to have all your ducks in a row as well to accommodate and roll the red carpet out to that seller, because that makes them feel like, wow, I'm getting almost the full realtor experience for free from this guy. So that's how I even got lower on price. And I got something called seller concession, people. Seller concession. Seller concession left everybody's vocabulary for the past 4 years, basically. It's like, what is seller concession? Well, I got some seller concession too.
Let's dive in on that, Kajan, because I think that's a massively important concept. A lot of people aren't familiar with seller concessions. Please explain those to us just in rough terms.
Yeah, so you could get on an investment property, I believe you could get up to 2% of the total sales price of the deal in seller concession. So if it's $100,000, you can get $2,000 from the seller. In my case, I can get $4,000. It's just about $200K.
The seller is helping to cover one's closing costs. If you're the buyer, the seller's helping pay for those things, so it's less money out of pocket to you as the buyer at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. Yeah. When you get your good faith estimate and you look at that bottom line number, when you say you saw 30,000, it would be actually 26,000 if you got a 4,000 seller concession, because they can cover all those closing costs, which closing costs typically come to $55,000 to $6,000.
Wow.
On a deal almost upwards of like $350,000. It's almost all about relatively the same. You have processing, title attorney fees, closing fees, just a lot of random fees in there that you got to pay for. But yeah, so that really helps significantly if you could get the seller concession, but you got to know to ask for it. And that was what my guy was just like, wait, what typically can you do? And I'm like, well, typically I get 2%.
And what I like too, Kajan, the way you phrase that deal is that you're using the state of Maine purchase and sale agreement provided by the state board of realtors. I think that's smart too, because when you're working directly with the seller, it can be somewhat intimidating for you to have this massive amount of knowledge and they don't have any knowledge. I think for you coming in saying, hey, here's a neutral PNS, that's a great way to bridge that trust. I think it's a really smart move. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but that's how I read it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to build the trust is critical for sure, because he's a bit vulnerable too, because he's signing this and he doesn't know what's going to really happen. And you could tell, like, to him, this feels like a done deal. Like it's like sold now to him. But to me, it's like, whatever, we could get out of it if we really wanted to, but I don't want to. But yeah, but I'd say, so BYRON, you asked too about the variables, meaning the variables of the deal, like what?
Yeah, because it's not just about money. I think that's a common misconception. People think, hey, you got to come in with the most money, but maybe you don't. Can you dive a little bit into that, as far as inspections, the closing timeline, or the privacy perhaps the seller wants to maintain?
Yeah, for sure, BYRON. So what does help for me is how fluent are you in this process? So I think that's a variable in its own self is, does the seller feel confident that this buyer actually knows what he's doing and he's going to get the job done? Or am I going to waste my time with this guy trying to sell off-market deal? So the sharper you come across, the more process-driven and the more standard operating procedures that you could kind of explain to him in a nice, comfortable way and not be overwhelming, the better off you are. And then, I let him tell me the price. And then I basically, rather than going back and forth on price, I wanted to see the unit. And so I had a friend of mine go to the unit. I mean, I'm 852 miles from it. So, and he sent me some pictures too, but a friend of mine went to the unit and took a video for me actually, and then gave me some of his information back that he thought as well. And that's part of building a trusted resource center. And he's one of my trusted resources. And then instead of negotiating a price, I talked to him about carpeting. I talked to him about paint on the walls. I talked to him about an oven that looked pretty old. and things like that. Knowing, for me, I want to get that unit rented out as quick as possible once I own it. I don't want to be doing those fixtures. So if I'm gonna like nickel and dime him on price and try to get him down like $3,000, I'd rather not do it there. I'd rather do it in what I can have him upfit the unit as he's living in it. And that's what he's doing. And that's what he agreed to. And we put that in the terms. You can put additional terms in your agreement that don't have anything to do with dollars and cents.
Caggiano, sorry to interrupt. We're down to our last 30 seconds here. Love having you on the show. Definitely want to have you back on again soon. Where can people find out more about you?
Yep. You could search section8secrets.com and just check that out. You could go on YouTube. You could search it on YouTube as well. We have plenty of video content, educational content that's free. And then you're welcome to sign up for the program as well.
Awesome. Caggiano, thank you so much for being on the Matt Byron Show. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.